Well, good evening, everybody. My name's Andrew Jackson. I'm one of the associate principals at WQE. Thanks very much for joining us on our evening about progression for students. The plan for this evening is that we will do some presentations that will last for about 40 minutes, and then we'll have a chance to answer any questions that have come up through the Q&A in the last sort of 15 to 20 minutes. If you are just coming in and joining us, don't panic, we haven't started quite yet, and there will be a recording and a transcription available of what we go through this evening. And that will be up on the college website, certainly by the start of next week. So I'm really pleased to be joined this evening by some of my colleagues. So we've got Kate O'Farrell, who's our Careers Education Manager, Rakesh Naik, who's one of our Heads of Studies, and also delighted to be joined by Faye Wickham, who is from De Montfort University, and she's going to do the hard bit about all the money and student finance a bit later on. So very welcome, Kate and Faye, and thanks very much for joining us. So we are going to go through basically a brief summary of where our students went to last year, and then I'm going to hand over to Rakesh. He's going to talk us through the UCAS process, so applying for higher education, how all that works, and then on to Kate to talk about some of the more specialist courses, if students are thinking about a year out, and then also the alternatives to higher education, so degree apprenticeships, employment and the like. And then we will hand over to Faye, who will talk about student finance. So if you have any questions, please do put them into the Q&A, and we will try and answer things as we go along. Those of us who aren't presenting at the time will sort of type answers in. What we'd say is, great this evening for general questions, but if there is something that's very specific to your particular the child or so the person that you're kind of concerned about and where they're going and what they're going to do next, then those are best picked up by emailing the PPM and talking those through. So we won't be taking sort of particular ones on particular students this evening, but please do get in touch with the personal progress mentor for the student, and they should be able to help. Okay, Kate, on to the next slide.
Yes.
Okay, it says there is no Q&A set up.
If there's no Q&A set up, it might be better to use the chat function if that's possible. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and reshare. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened with the slide.
Yeah, that's okay.
So yeah, the chat should work fine. The functionality on the chat should work fine for questions.
Okay, so we're going for chat rather than Q&A, are we? Okay, let's go for putting things in the chat then. So on to a summary of where our students went to last time. So the vast majority, as you can see, okay, can you actually do it so it's actually, you've started the presentation, so it's a bit bigger on the screen rather than having it down the side? Brilliant, thank you. My failing eyesight. So as you can see, the vast majority of our students, when they leave us, go on to higher education, so into universities, about 75% of them. The rest, most then go into employment or training, so about 15%, and then small numbers take gap years or go into volunteering, and we have a small number who mainly for issues of ill health tend to be inactive, and it takes them a little while to go on to the next stage. So in terms of numbers, about 200 students go into employment or training or apprenticeships, and about 1,200 on to higher education. So obviously, as questions come up, please do put them into the chat. I will sort of go off screen and type in the background whilst I hand over to Rakesh to talk you through the next bit.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andrew. Much appreciated. A big warm welcome to everybody on behalf of myself, Rakesh Naik. I'm one of the heads of studies. Good evening. So first thing I want to say to everybody is a big well done for getting your children through to almost the end of the first year. I'm sure it's been a challenge at times, but enormously gratifying, you know, watching them grow and flourish. And we're already talking about university. So, you know, that's fantastic. So, as Andrew has said, part of my brief is to oversee the work of the PPMs, the Personal Progress Mentors, whose responsibility it is to track and monitor progress, which includes supporting them with their progression via sort of group sessions, essentially the group tutorial program. And a large part of this work centers around employability skills, including UCAS. Now, you'll be pleased to know that I'm not going to take you through every single tile that's on there, but I think the point that I want to make is there's a huge amount of support that's available to all students before they even put pen to paper or apply online for UCAS. And that's really quite important. A large number of our students, over 90% of our students go on to some form of higher education. So this is a big part of what we do. And ironically, this week, I'm sure your children have talked to you about this, but we have started registering for UCAS. That's something that's happening in our group sessions right now. So what we've also done is we've been talking to them about the support that's available at university, and we've issued them with a booklet that highlights in quite a lot of detail the sort of support around UCAS, the sort of breadth of courses, what BSc is, what a BA is, what an MA is, for example, the sort of placements that are available in particular degree courses, what it might mean to take a gap year, for example. So what we're trying to do is scaffold their understanding and getting them to use the UCAS hub, which includes talking to them about the entry requirements. In addition to this, we have our brilliant FutureWise event that's taking place next week, where we offer students a fantastic opportunity to find out a little bit more about the UCAS process, student finance. We're going to have a talk in a little while about student finance, but lots of help and support around personal statements, apprenticeships, for example, admissions to particular universities. In fact, there are 13 pages of activities. I've just had a quick look at that. And I'm sure Kate O'Farrell will talk to you about that at a later point. But the point I want to make is great amount of support that's available through our FutureWise as well. Next slide, if I can, please, Kate.
Sorry, Rakesh, I'm having some issues with the PowerPoint side. I'm trying to move it on.
Okay, no problem. Take your time. Excellent. Right. So the UCAS process. What this slide should really say is the UCAS process internally. This is what happens at WQE. So before the end of term, teachers will be making predicted grades, which will be recorded onto our central administrative system called ProMonitor. Eventually, students will be able to see that on Pro Portal, which your children have access to. Subject staff, as part of that process, will be writing supportive statements, which are markedly different to what teachers have previously been required to do, in that they will now be really quite short, concise, factual, sort of evidence-based statements of fact, and these are used to create the overall reference. So the idea of, writing on a statement, Johnny Patel is a lovely student, works really hard and is recommended unreservedly. That sort of statement's now not going to wash. We need some factual information, some data. And what this has done is streamline the UCAS process. And I think that's a really, really positive thing. So that's relatively new for this year. Students can make 5 choices. You'll probably know that already. They can apply for obviously more than one course at the same university. That's not a problem at all. And we encourage all students to make at least 5 applications if possible. So students should, and this is quite an important point here, they should be making their choices based on their predicted grades, and they really need to pay particular attention to this. It's really important. For example, if your child's predicted grades are 3 grade Ds, for example, then they really shouldn't be applying for medicine. Obviously, they need to be opting for other science-based courses, and there are plenty of them. So there's huge amounts of choices, but it's quite an important point about making sure that they are realistic about their choices. Next slide, please. So this is really deadlines for internally for the college. No surprises, we're a big college. We've got huge numbers of students applying for university. We therefore need quite a lead time in terms of processing all the applications, making sure that the quality checking is right, making sure that the information that we've got about your son and daughter is accurate, it's well presented, and it reads well. These things take time, which is why we've set aside some extra time to make sure that we can scrutinize this and make sure the quality checking is appropriate. So in many ways, these deadlines are fairly kind of self-explanatory, but it really allows for applications to be reviewed and checked because of the large volume. And also this time allows for dialogue between the personal progress mentor, the person who's going to be compiling this reference, and the teachers to make sure that all this happens in advance of the details. Now, I should also point out that the timelines for competitive universities are different, and we've highlighted them on the screen, and they're known as Russell Group or Sutton 30, and essentially these are what they call high-ranking research-based universities, and those universities and the application process for those universities is somewhat different in terms of their timelines. So please remind your children to be mindful of that. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the UCAS. We've paid the fee. We've got the application process off. You're relieved. Your children are relieved. What happens next? Well, sometimes students get offers pretty much straight away, within a week or two. Others perhaps take a little bit longer. Most courses don't ask for interviews. The ones that tend to hold interviews tend to be, sort of Oxbridge or, students studying for medicine or vet science or dentistry, maybe nursery, midwifery, for example. So the vast majority of university courses don't require your son and daughter to attend an interview, but those particular courses will. Now, we talk about, kind of conditional offers and unconditional offers. What does this mean? Well, really simple. Almost all students will receive some kind of conditional offer. That essentially means that students need to they need to meet certain entry requirements. If they meet the entry requirements, then they have a chance for admission. Those students, there are some students that have what they call an unconditional offer. This is quite rare, but it can happen in particular universities where your son and daughter may have made a firm choice. And it tends to be the sort of lower tariff universities, but again, it's not that often that young people get unconditional offers, but we do see them now and again. Students are given mock interview support and this support is really important, and it emanates from their respective curriculum area. For example, if your son and daughter wants to apply for medicine, they will get help and support from their teachers, whether it's a biology teacher or a chemistry teacher, it doesn't matter, but we will be providing that support. The other thing I should comment on is that art foundation degrees tend not to go through the UCAS process. Students tend to make applications directly. Again, you don't need to worry about this at this stage. We will be providing you with all that help and support, but also there's lots of information on the UCAS website should you want to have a look at that. Next slide, please. Okay, so really a last note on specialist courses. We support all students, particularly those from people who want to do specialist courses. Usually this happens via the UCAS system. Students need to make sure that they let their PPM know as soon as possible if your son and daughter wants to apply for a specialist course. Certainly, if your son and daughter are at Studio 79 or LCPA, they will be helping your son and daughter through that process. But again, that will be a specialist course. So you don't need to worry about that. We will provide you with extra help and support around that. So what I'm now going to do, thank you very much indeed, I'm going to hand over to Kate O'Farrell, our excellent careers manager, who's going to go through some alternatives to universities, including some pros and cons. So over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Rakesh. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent careers manager, not so great at PowerPoint presentations, it turns out. Anyway, thank you for that. So we just wanted to spend a little bit of time now looking at students who may be considering taking a gap year. As you could see earlier from the destinations chart, it's quite a fairly small number of our students that do consider this, but we wanted to make sure you were aware of the different processes in terms of taking a gap year. So there are two main ways really to look at doing this. One is to apply for what's called deferred entry, which means the student would apply this year along with everybody else for UCAS, but when they add their choices on, they would indicate that they wanted to start in 2026 instead of 2025. So that's an option, which means that everything will get confirmed on results day as usual, but the student won't be going until the following year. That deferral doesn't have to happen when they add their choice either. It can happen at any point throughout the year. So if a student initially applies for 2025 entry, but then decides at some point during the year that they would like to take a gap year, they can at that point still apply for deferral by contacting the universities. And it's always up to the universities whether they will allow a student to defer or not, but most of the time it's fine. And the other option is to apply after the student has their results. So at some point during the gap year, that they would then apply as a kind of independent candidate. There is no best or better way of doing this. It really, really depends on the individual and on their reasons for wanting to defer or wanting to take a gap year. Just to go through some of the possible things to consider with this. So the positives of a deferred entry are it's great for students who know exactly what they want to do and they have the grades pretty much to get there and they know exactly where they want to go because they go into their gap year and their place at university is secured. So for those students, it's a really good bet. And also they're applying through college with their sort of peers, and they'll pay the same amount as the students that are applying to go in 2025. The benefits of applying as an independent candidate in your gap year is perhaps that might work better for students who perhaps don't know exactly what they want to do or maybe want to wait to get their actual grades before they apply because perhaps their predicted grades don't match the course that they want to do yet. So that could be a really good bet for those students. Just a couple of things to consider there with the fact that, for example, if you're away over your gap year, you may not be around for interviews that you might need to attend. It's important to point out as well, it isn't one or the other. So, for example, a student may apply for a deferred place, and that place may be confirmed on results day. And then during their gap year, they may change their mind or decide they want to do a different course or attend a different university. And that's absolutely still possible. They're not tied into the deferred option. They would just have to withdraw from that and then reapply and go through the independent candidate process. So happy to pick up any questions on that later on, but I just wanted to move on to make sure that we'd spent some time today talking to you about some of the alternative options to a traditional university degree. And we are going to focus on apprenticeships, and specifically higher and degree level apprenticeships, because we've seen a real increase in interest and demand for these over the last few years. So we know it's something that our students and parents are very interested in. But just to touch on a couple of other points. So the top two are very much linked. So higher education in further education essentially means that students study a university level course at a further education college. So for us locally, that would be Leicester or Loughborough, North Warwickshire, or one of our local FE colleges. They tend to be courses that are equivalent to the first 2 years of a university degree, so at level 4 or 5. And they tend to be more focused on vocational areas, but these are very good for students who perhaps are keen to move forward in a smaller environment, perhaps than a traditional university. Higher technical qualifications, or HTQs, is something that's fairly new to the qualification context, but we did just want to mention it tonight. It's essentially a way of bridging apprenticeships and a full university degree. So these courses have been developed in conjunction with employers, and they're all about supporting students to develop the skills that employers need for the future workforce. They're only currently in a fairly small number of sectors, so that's digital, construction, and also health and science, but they are looking to become a bigger area. So locally, Leicester College are currently offering a number of HTQs, which you can have a look at on their website as an example. The Year in Industry is a very specific gap year programme, which is run by the Engineering Development Trust. And it offers students paid placements between 9 and 12 months. It's based in STEM, so science, technology, engineering and maths, but there are also opportunities within business and finance, falling into the math side. Students can register for Year in Industry vacancies in their second year, and they will receive regular vacancy bulletins. And then towards the end of the year, they can start to apply for those vacancies that come up, if that's something that they're interested in doing. So we'll make sure there's a link to that on the presentation when we upload it to the website, if there isn't already. So moving on to apprenticeships then, and specifically higher and degree level apprenticeships. These are still the smallest area of apprenticeships, so there are still more apprenticeships at level 3 and at level 2, but it is a growing area. So since they were launched, we've seen a number of new degree level apprenticeships proposed and coming on stream. So, for example, the solicitor degree apprenticeship, and some of you may have heard of the teaching degree apprenticeship as well. As with any apprenticeship, it's a mixture of a full-time job and academic learning. But for a higher or degree level apprenticeship, that learning is a university level qualification. It may be a full degree, it may be a higher national diploma or a foundation degree, and all of the education costs are paid for, which is of course one of the big pluses of these opportunities. And the student is also paid a salary, so that's how it works really. In terms of applying for these opportunities, they do require UCAS points or have certain grade requirements. Some are higher than others, and as you would expect, they are competitive. But we do have examples every year of WQE students who progress into these opportunities. And what's really nice is at the careers fair, I'm sure lots of you came to that, a lot of the stands are staffed by ex-students who are now working for employers on apprenticeships. So the support is there, and we will support students as much as we can to get into these opportunities, but they are competitive. And as well as the UCAS points, the employers are also looking for a range of employability skills, so things like communication and teamwork, so that they know that when they invest in this student, they're going to get they're going to work hard for them, essentially. In terms of when to apply, some of the bigger name firms do open in the autumn term for applications. So at the same time as students are applying for UCAS, some of the bigger accounting firms and tech firms will be open at that point for recruitment for the following September. Then there's a bit of a lull over December and January, and then there's another load that come on from February, March onwards. So they kind of have to keep an eye on it all through the year if it's something that they're interested in. But as Rakesh said, at our FutureWise event, we're going to have a number of sessions about apprenticeships, including an ex-student who was with us last year and who has progressed on to a degree level apprenticeship at Atkins. So students have got the opportunity to come and talk to him about what he does and how he got in, more importantly. And the very important point about higher and degree apprenticeships to make is that you can apply for them as well as applying through UCAS. So the application systems are completely separate. So most of our students will apply, who are interested in higher or degree apprenticeships, will apply for both uni and apprenticeships, because you can do that because they're totally separate systems. And just wanted to finish by mentioning the support at WQE. Obviously, you've seen that most of our students progress onto university, but we're having a significant growing number that are progressing and that are interested in apprenticeships. So we have tailored and bespoke support for those students in terms of helping them with their applications, interview skills, how to research and find these opportunities, which isn't always easy. But what we've got on the next slide actually is some useful websites that you can have a look at for degree and higher level apprenticeships. And UCAS have just kind of over the last year or so got into the game of advertising apprenticeships. So that's another really good place to check, not just for university courses, but for apprenticeships as well. I think that was all I was going to say on that. So at that point, I'll stop sharing my screen and hand over to you, Faye. If you're there for the student finance presentation.
Here I am, yes. I'm just going to share my screen with everybody. Just bear with me. It's been a long time since I've done this. Okay, Kate, can everybody see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Lovely. So good evening, everyone. So my name is Faye and I work within the school and college liaison team at Montfort University. So whilst I'm here to speak to you about student finance, the rules that are set are not specifically through DMU, and they are kind of government funding, government kind of guidelines and how to apply. So hopefully this will give you a bit of an introduction and get you kind of thinking about what those next steps might be for students. Bear with me, I don't know. Oh, there we go, it keeps freezing. So the government will pay for up to 4 years at undergraduate level. So that might mean that a student is doing a 4-year course. It could be that they are doing a year in industry and there are usually some fees to pay whilst they're doing that. It could be a year abroad. So for any students maybe studying in a foreign country for a year, then that might apply to them as well. Some courses are for 4 years, so courses like pharmacy, but the 4th year is actually a postgraduate qualification, so it doesn't actually count as undergraduate. It can also be that students start a course, do the first year, decide maybe it wasn't quite for them, and they may want to restart university doing a different course. So that is why that wiggle room is there and provided by the government. So universities, they charge currently up to £9,250 per year in tuition fees. This can vary, so you might find that there are some university colleges that are affiliated with universities and that offer cheaper tuition fees. So it might be around about the 6,000–7,000 mark. Usually it's, you know, not necessarily saying that the course is inferior. It might just be that they aren't close to lots of the facilities that they could use at the affiliated university. I just want to bear in mind, most universities do charge the full fees for all of their courses. Tuition fees, they can be paid for via a student fee loan, tuition fee loan, so that can be from the government, and students can also get a maintenance loan to go towards living costs. So those are the two loans that students can apply to. Anybody who does want to go away today to check eligibility can go onto the government website. So that's where you can look and find out what the eligibility is for a tuition fee loan and a maintenance loan. If students want to take out that tuition fee loan, they can take the full amount. If perhaps they have savings or inheritance or whatever it might be, some people may want to just apply for half of the tuition fee loan, pay for the other half themselves. That is something that can be done. But if they want to access the full tuition fee loan that's available to them, they don't need to prove household income, savings. It doesn't go on doesn't get assessed on the kind of financial aspect side of things. And those tuition fee loans, when they do apply for them and they are granted, they go directly to the university. So they don't go into the student's bank account. It's probably for the best. If £9,000 odd turned up in my bank account, I'd probably be booking a holiday. So that goes directly to the university from Student Finance England, that's the government body, and tuition fees are only requested once they are at university, they're enrolling. So that does give students a bit of a wiggle room. So if they're applying to lots of different options, whether it's a degree apprenticeship, an apprenticeship and university, they can still make an application for student finance. Nothing commits them to it until they're actually at university on their first day enrolling. So that's just something to bear in mind. There's no cost for making the application for the tuition fee loan. There is obviously a cost for the UCAS part of it, which is about £27, whereas the student finance side of things, there isn't a cost to make an application. So just a bit of an idea about what the tuition fees cover. So I'll just let you have a bit of a browse here. Obviously just making sure that we have the facilities and the pastoral support available to students to make sure that they are supported whilst they're studying with us, that they have access to industry standard facilities. We want to make sure that we train our students to be able to go into the workforce, to be able to use industry standard equipment and really succeed. So that's something that we obviously want to make sure we're investing in throughout the students' time at university. So the maintenance loan is, it covers or goes towards living costs. So those can be things like rent and bills, transport, books, whatever students might need whilst they're at university. Now, this is slightly different in that the maintenance loan is paid directly into the student's bank account. It is paid in 3 different instalments, so they don't get too much all at once, but it is still a kind of budgeting finance balance of making sure that that instalment lasts usually around about 3 months, sometimes 4 months. The maintenance loan does work a little bit differently in that It is means tested. They do look at factors such as household income. So every student will get something different depending on their circumstances. Something that I would advise you to go away and check, and I think it also is difficult for students to do on their own, is to pop onto Google, type in the student finance calculator. That will open up a website where you can put in some information, such as what course the student wants to do, how many years is the course, how much is brought into the household. So whoever pays the bills supports the students. I think there might be a lot of students who don't know necessarily how much income is brought into the household. So that's something where parents and carers can really be quite useful. That will give students an idea of how much maintenance loan that they would receive, or a bit of an estimate, because obviously it's, you know, when they're applying to university, because figures change every year slightly to try and meet the changes of costs yearly. So that's definitely a good start, and students can see, well, can I afford the accommodation that I want if I want to move away from home? And have a look at various factors. We just mentioned to students as well to make sure they think about some of the costs that they might incur whilst they're at university. So, obviously making sure that if they are going to move away from home, making sure they pay out their big bills first, so things like rent, for example. And then obviously the other things, how often they might want to go out for something to eat, or can they really afford to buy a coffee out every day? And these are some of the workshops we can offer students as well if they want to, when they start university, to find out a bit more about how to control their finances whilst they're at university. This is probably the important slide here, is having a look at the maintenance loan entitlement per academic year. So you can see down the left-hand column is the household income. And then you have the living at home next to it. So just because a student decides to study and live at home, study at university, live at home, it doesn't mean they don't have access to the maintenance loan. So they will get something. We obviously understand that they may still need to travel. They may perhaps need to pay for public transport or a car, parking or food, maybe towards rent. So they're just the figures there for you to have a look at. Then the next column is living away from home. And then after that, it's living away from home and in London, because London is more expensive. The figures there will be a bit higher. So just something to note there is that students from higher household income will receive less maintenance loan. And I guess the idea from the government is that students from higher household income will receive more financial support from family. Not always going to be the case, so it's obviously just really important to have that conversation to find out, students can find out what support is available. If they perhaps need to look at scholarships, at bursaries, at getting perhaps a part-time job, working maybe full-time in the summer holidays to help bring up the amount that they have to live on each year. So it's definitely something to have a look at sooner rather than later, just to see what pots of money are available to the students, and what support is available at home. I can share those figures as well with Kate, and make sure that a PDF copy can be made available as well. So how to actually make the application. So this is all done through Student Finance England. So that's for both the maintenance and the tuition fee loan. It's all through the same portal. The application portal each year. So for students, say, is starting this September, the application portal is already open. And then for next year, it usually is around February, March time that the application portal opens. The deadline for making the application is around about mid-May. It does change slightly year on year, but you'll be made aware of it. You can register for updates via Student Finance England. Obviously, you can speak to universities, you can speak to WQE as well. So we're all there to make sure that we do offer the support and the information is available. Now, just because a student doesn't apply to student finance by that deadline, it doesn't mean they can't access it. This is just to make sure that students can be guaranteed that their finances are in order for the start of university. So say a student decided, you know what, I'm going to go to university, say in August, their A-level results day, they did better than they expected, they decided maybe I will actually go to university. They can then contact Student Finance England and make that application. It just might mean it might not be there in time for the start of the semester. Application, again, is done through the government website, so the same place where you apply for a passport or driving licence. It's through the gov.uk portal. If you type into Google, just make sure you do the gov.uk link. This is what the students need. So the students are obviously the ones making the application, but they will need support from yourself. Passport details they'll need. Otherwise, if they don't have a passport, they will need to post their original birth certificate. So that can be a little bit tricky, a little bit worrying. Obviously, you need to make sure you send that off by recorded delivery, and just check from Student Finance England how they want to send, they want you to send it. They want the university that the student wants to go to and their course details, so what course, degree program they wish to apply to. That's just so they can see how much the tuition fees are per year. This can be changed later. We know things don't always go to plan, or students change their minds. So this is just for now where the student hopes to go to, best case scenario. They can make that application to Student Finance even if they haven't heard back from all the universities that they've applied to, or if they haven't decided exactly where they want to go to, they can still make the application. That's absolutely fine. These things can all be changed. Similarly, they want bank account details for the student, and these will be changed later, because once the student has the acceptance letter from the university, they will go to make an application for a student bank account, or they might switch their current bank account to a student bank account, because that's sometimes possible. Students will also need to pop down who their sponsor is. So that might be mum, it might be dad, or a carer, whoever is responsible for the student, who pays the bills, puts a roof over their head, that will be the sponsor. Now, for any students who do live across households, it does just take the one house into consideration when looking at the maintenance loan. So it will be where the student spends most of their time, their predominant home, and not the two separate household incomes. The application process itself can take up to 6 weeks. So that's why we do urge students to kind of get on with this, make sure they don't delay it. They can, I believe, e-sign it now as well. So it can be quicker than that, but we just like to say, just be on the safe side and get that application in. Now, students, as I mentioned, will put down their sponsors' contact details, and that will be the name, and it will be usually an email address. Student Finance England will then contact that sponsor, so that yourselves, and they will ask for some very personal information. They'll ask for things like your national insurance number. They want to find out your evidence of your household income. So just make sure you have your end of tax year to hand, your report, so you can have a look at that. If there's a massive difference in household income between the previous tax year and the next tax year, you can always hold on and make that clear to Student Finance England. At any point, if there is a big change in household income, students can contact Student Finance England and let them know, and they can reassess the application. Students actually submit this every year. So they do it for first year, their second year, their third year. So they're always making sure that they are offering the correct amount to the student. Once we do say to students, and obviously you have that conversation at home, to just remind them to let you know if they've made the application, so that you can look out for an email, possibly check your junk email box as well, just in case an email goes into there. I know I often have emails go into my junk inbox, and I don't check it as often as I should. So obviously just make sure that everybody is aware of when that application is happening, when it's being submitted. So repayment, the very exciting part. I do apologise. This is obviously really important for everyone to be aware of. Students are signing themselves into a contract. That's what it is. At the end of the day, they are borrowing money, and a lot of money. So it is very important that they understand what that contract is and what the repayment terms are. Now, the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan, once the student graduates, is treated as one loan repayment. So it's not you're repaying your tuition fee loan and you're repaying your maintenance loan. It's just one lump sum. Now, those repayments start in the April after graduation. So a student graduates, say July time, they finish university, and then even if they go straight into work, they won't be asked for a payment from Student Finance England until the April. They'll only be asked to make repayments once their income is over £25,000. So they do look at the income as opposed to how much the graduate has borrowed during their time at university. I'll show you a table now of how repayments are calculated. So it's 9% of any earnings over £25,000. So this is how it looks. So if a student is earning £30,000 per year, their monthly student loan repayment would be £37.50. So as you can see from this, the higher the income, the higher the monthly repayment. The repayments are automatically calculated at the same time as national insurance is taken, or your tax is taken. So no kind of direct debits need to be set up. So that's all calculated on the student's behalf. It comes out your wage before you even get it. If the graduate's salary drops at any point, repayments stop. So that's something to just be aware of as well. If students change their job, or maybe they go into the volunteering sector, maybe aren't receiving a yearly income, then their repayments would stop. Similarly, if they change the job, perhaps they're now earning less than £25,000 per year, repayments would stop. Repayments will be paid if they're earning over £25,000 per year. They will keep making repayments either until it's paid off, or if 40 years has passed, then repayments will stop. So some graduates may find that they pay very, very little of their student loan off. The student loan doesn't affect things like credit scores, future loans, mortgages. When I applied for my first mortgage, I did get asked how much my monthly student loan repayment is, but that was just checking the affordability that I had per month to be able to afford the mortgage. So they don't actually take into consideration, it's not a black mark against the graduate. Bit of a bleak one, but just to note that the student loan cannot be passed on or inherited. You may be wondering about the actual value of the amount borrowed and how it works. So obviously in 30, 40 years time, the amount borrowed is going to be of less value. So they do go up the amount borrowed does go up with RPI. So that's just something to bear in mind. But there isn't any interest on the actual loan itself. So before it was up to 3% in addition to RPI, and now it is just RPI. Scholarships and bursaries is definitely something really important to research. I think that some of these are automatically awarded by universities. Some of them are an application. So when the student has thought about the 5 universities that they want to apply to, there's usually a web page where they can look at all the scholarships, bursaries offered by the university. Sometimes they're not through the university, sometimes they're separate. There's a great website called the scholarship-hub.org where students can register and find out about all the different kind of scholarships and bursaries available. And it is really good to just take that time to do that research, because they are free pots of money. Don't have to pay them back. Nobody tells you what you have to spend them on. So obviously it's good to have that free cash to help with finances while studying. Some courses have grants attached to them. So for example, NHS courses, for some courses, so for example, nursing, midwifery, students can get up to £5,000 per year. Again, they can spend it on what they feel is necessary to spend it on. Nobody kind of dictates that to them. They also put in quite a lot of hours, both on placement and at university. So there's that understanding where they may not perhaps be able to take up a normal kind of part-time job like other students. Other courses can have that learning support fund attached to them. So for example, medical and dental courses can be up to £1,000 per year. These are automatically, normally it'll become clear as to how to apply to these. If students are applying to these courses, we do keep students in the loop on how to go about that. DSA, so this is short for the Disabled Students Allowance, so it helps pay for any essential costs that the student might need whilst they're at university. It can go towards human support, assistive technology, travel costs, for example, and it does not need to be paid back. So students can decide again at times what that support needs to go towards. They can go to an assessment appointment with the university to decide how they can best support the students. These applications can take up to 16 weeks, so you do it before you start university. What students can do when they do the UCAS application is they can say, if there's any particular learning differences that they may have, any extra support they might need whilst they're at university, and then we can try and get that support in place before the student starts university, so we can get it all ready for their first week. Something else that we often just mention for students is that they may want to look at some of the opportunities for earning an income whilst at university. So something we offer, and I know lots of other universities offer this, is a student ambassador scheme. So students can get a fair wage, they can work flexibly. We don't want a part-time job to affect their studies. So that's something that students might want to have a look at, what kind of opportunities for earning that the university offers. Some students might look at working throughout the summer holidays, for example, or maybe Christmas or Easter. I know I used to work the next sales during the holidays. So that might be something, students might think about if they want to supplement their income, their maintenance loan that comes in. Universities also can offer internships and placements. These are often paid for these days, so we're not expecting students to work for free. So they can usually get an income from doing these. Just to finish on, really, is we always are, encouraging students, usually during their freshers week when they first start university. We like to try and shout out about making sure that they find out all about budgeting, that they make sure that their money goes as far as possible. That they have picked the best student account for them, the student bank account, that they are making sure they plan their big finances in first, that they make sure that they sign up for a student card and apply to things like uni days or the totem app, and they make sure that they are making their money go a little bit further. I know that was pretty much student finance in a very quick nutshell. Again, I can share this with WQE and with Kate, and if anybody has any questions to me personally as well, I can also provide my my email address.
Thanks, Faye. There is a question, actually. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this now, or it might be one for afterwards. But if parents don't live together and a student spends equal time at each household, how would the household income be determined in that instance?
Off the record, they might want to pick the household with the smaller income. If they want a higher maintenance loan.
Yeah. I've just been just doing a bit of research on Student Finance England, and yeah, basically the student can pick which parent they put down in support of the application. So as Faye says, pick whichever is to your financial advantage, I guess.
I think we've pretty much dealt with most of the questions in the chat. There was one about the year in industry scheme. There was a couple about that, and whether that's students applying for that in year 13, which they do. So yeah.
There was, I couldn't see the comments whilst I was presenting, but for any sponsors on here, I did see about the student loan interest. That was previous years that it was up to 3% interest on top of the rate RPI. But since they've changed the repayments to 40 years instead of 30 years, they've actually taken the interest off. So that's just something to bear in mind. I wish they would take it off my student loan at the moment. But yeah, that's just something to think about when obviously taking off the student finance. A little bit of a positive.
Yeah. There's the odd question floating around about the presentations and will we make those available. So yeah, just to confirm that both of the presentations, we'll put those onto the college website, and we'll also put the recording on there, and we will email out a link to all parents and carers who we've got the email address for, so that everybody's got opportunity to then access them. And it's likely to come out early next week.
Probably worth mentioning also that it'll be on the parent carer section, just in case.
Yeah, parent carer section. Thank you, Rakesh.
And at the end of the slide as well, there's contact details if you did have any follow-up questions.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Faye, for that. I'm always in awe of anybody who can talk knowledgeably and sensibly about student finance. So thanks very much for doing that for us. And thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thanks to Rakesh and to Kate for giving their time this evening. And thank you for joining us. And we wish all students the best possible chance and success with what they apply for and what comes next. And we look forward to working with them. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.